Kidnapping doesn't always start with violence. Sometimes it starts with a call or a visit from someone you trust, but when you finally realize that something isn't right, it's already too late. I was kidnapped by my biological father when I was in 4th grade. After my parents divorced and my mom remarried, my younger brother and I went to visit, we'll call him Bill. Being super young at the time, I didn't think anything of the events that transpired, but not long after we arrived in our old hometown, Bill decided to move house from the town to a smaller area just outside of the town, not too far, like a 15 to 20 minute drive from the main town area. This was a time before constant contact with cell phones and emails and the like. It wasn't too strange that I didn't talk to my mom. Unless the stars aligned, I called home and she happened to be there. The visit went longer than I had expected because the fall came and I was enrolled in school there. Bill told us that mom said it was okay if we started school there because she wanted to make sure that we didn't miss any since she was working through some stuff, as Bill put it. Again, I'm a naive little boy, and I got to see some of my old friends again, so yay. But I still didn't get to talk to mom. Not for months. Occasionally, Bill would pull me aside and ask me some pointed questions about mom and her new spouse. We'll call him Tom. Not thinking about what was implied by these lines of questioning, I happily answered, "Does Tom call you names?" "Well, yeah. What does he call you?" "I don't want to say because they're swear words." "It's okay. You can tell me. You won't get in trouble." "Well, sometimes he called us dumbass or stupid ass." Bill kept prying. "When does he call you these names?" "When we're bad or break things." I broke some cups on accident when I stood up on the counter to get a bowl and he called me a dumb butt. "Does he spank you?" "Yeah, just like you do when we're bad," and so on and so forth. One day, Bill took us to a restaurant and we got to have some dessert. We sat down with a man I'd never met before. Bill had me tell this man some of the same things I told Bill when I would be questioned. When they spoke afterwards, they used words that I had never heard before, so I just thought it was grown-up talk. I was far too engrossed in my pie a la mode to care. See, Bill was something of a well-known person in town, a high-ranking official in the police department, had connections throughout the country, and the man that we had dessert with was a judge from a family court. Old Bill here was trying to build a case against my mom of child endangerment and such. He was trying to use connections and clout to secure custody of me and my brother. The reasons I hadn't heard from my mom in months was because he moved and never told her. He changed his number and never told her. He used his connections to stymie attempts to track us down. Since we lived an entire state away, restraining orders were granted by the judge, so there was no contact allowed. When I look back on this with wiser eyes, it's a real big shit show, but at the time I had no earthly idea that anything was amiss. The things that Bill fabricated, the ways he tried to coach and coerce me into saying things against my mom, the aftermath, it's scary that people do that, and they do. How did I survive? I was a kid with my dad, so I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until years down the road that I got to see the court documents showing the things that Bill alleged, and how he was ultimately shut down when he appealed and had no pull there. The day my mom showed up to pick us up and bring us home was magical. I hadn't seen her in almost a year, and I got a Super Nintendo as a belated birthday present, so that was pretty sweet too. Okay, my story is fairly long, but I'll try to stick with the big details. The earlier details are a little fuzzy because of how young I was, but my mother had me when I was 17 and my father was around 23 or 24. My father was extremely abusive to my mother, but from what I hear, he was a very good father to me when I was first born. Around the time when I was turning 4 or had just turned 5, my father had left and my mother was not ready to take care of a child on her own, so she gave me fully to my grandmother. While I was living with my grandmother, I was abused by a family member over a long period of time. At the time, I didn't understand that what was happening to me was wrong. I knew something felt confusing and uncomfortable, but I didn't have the language or the understanding to know that it was abuse. It took many years for me to fully understand what had been done to me. While I was going to school and living with my grandmother, I had a friend who was a little bit older than me, but I believe she was in the same grade. She lived down the street, and my grandmother was friends with her grandmother. One day, I went to her house, and she suggested that we play a game. It made me feel very uncomfortable, and I didn't understand at the time why it felt wrong, but I knew I didn't like it. When I got home that day, I told my grandmother. I also told her that I didn't want to go back and play with her again, but I couldn't explain why. I just knew that I felt uncomfortable, but because of what had already happened, I just thought that this was how people interacted with each other. Later on in the school year, during some kind of break, my father came to my grandmother's house and said that he wanted to take care of me for the weekend. I was excited because I hadn't seen him in so long. My grandmother cried and she said that she didn't want me to go, but he was my father and she didn't want to stop me from seeing him. He technically wasn't supposed to have me because of all the things that he had done to my mother, but she hadn't told my grandmother any of that. I left with him, and I didn't end up seeing my family again for another 6 years. A lot of things happened to me during that time. I'm going to try to separate it by families, because that's the way it makes most sense to me. I can't remember things by ages, because I didn't have birthdays, and most of the time, I didn't even know what day it was. The first family I went to lived fairly close to where my grandmother's house was. In this house lived an older woman, her husband, and her adult son. My father took me there and he told me that my family didn't love me anymore and I had to live with these people now. They treated me like a surrogate daughter in a way. They didn't hurt me physically, but they were emotionally cruel. They enjoyed seeing me upset and would ask me to do things that they knew I couldn't do, just so they could laugh at me when I failed. I didn't live there long before my father came back and took me to another family. In the second family lived a woman and her 2 teenage sons and my father. I have the least amount of memories from this family. What I do remember includes being treated roughly, being frightened often, and being exposed to things that no child should be exposed to. By no means do I blame the teenage boys in that house. From what I've come to understand later, they were also victims of the abuse. I can't remember exactly what happened the day we left the house. I remember screaming and being carried away by my father until we reached the next place. The third family is the one I remember the most and where I spent the most time. This family included a mother, an older daughter, an older son, and 2 younger twin boys. At first, the children were kind to me. They talked to me and played with me, but that only lasted a week or 2. After that, I was treated more like a servant than a child. I lived in the closet in the hallway most of the time. I was made to cook, clean. I wasn't allowed to eat with a family, and I could only eat leftovers. Every morning, I had to scrub the walls of the bedrooms and the bathroom with a toothbrush. I was hurt by members of that household, both physically and emotionally. I was called terrible names and beaten regularly. My father would show up occasionally, usually drunk. He would yell at me or hurt me. The older children in the house would also hit and blame me, and the younger children, they would intentionally get me in trouble. During all of this time, I was still going to school. I don't remember much about school, or how no one noticed what was happening, or if they did, why no one intervened. When I was in 3rd grade, on the last day of school before winter break, I was called to the office to leave early. On the way there, I realized I had forgotten my jacket and I went back to the classroom. When I re-entered the classroom, my teacher grabbed me and pulled me to the side and told me that I didn't have to leave anymore. Later, a classmate told me that someone on a do not see list had tried to take me out of school. I didn't ask questions, I just went back to my work. While walking to gym class, we passed the office and I saw a woman standing there. I didn't immediately recognize her, but I felt safe when I saw her. I ran to her crying. She was my mom. I later learned that she had found me by tracking photos posted online and calling schools in the area until she located me. Police and the school counselor became involved, and my mother was told that she had a short amount of time to leave with me. I don't remember what the counselor showed the police or what was said. I don't remember ever speaking to her directly. My mother took me back to my grandmother's house where my family was reunited. I felt guilty because I couldn't recognize many faces, but I remembered how they made me feel. Life didn't immediately become easy after that. I experienced further abuse, bullying, and struggled deeply with my mental health. My family never talked about the years that I was gone, so neither did I. They still don't know what happened to me during that time. Now, as an adult, I'm doing much better. I work with organizations that advocate for survivors of abuse, speaking at workshops, panels, and events. I don't often talk publicly about being kidnapped because I'm afraid my family might learn what actually happened, but I find myself thinking about it more as I get older. I'm 19 and turning 20 in December, and soon that time will make up less than half of my life. Talking about it helps. It makes what I went through feel real. I'm sorry if this is wordy or structured strangely. I didn't reread what I wrote. This is my first time sharing this. And P.S. I finally caved and asked my mother how she found me. My mother told me that she called schools and said that she was bringing cupcakes for my birthday and wanted to know what my teacher's name was. She kept calling until she finally found the school that had me. So this happened recently, like last Christmas. I used to sell weed, like quite a bit of weed. It's legal here now, but I was doing it before legalization. And during the changeover, I had a bunch of regular customers that would routinely grab off of me. One of those regulars calls me up and asks if I could see his brother-in-law. Yeah, no biggie. This particular guy had been to my house, had dinner at my table. Suffice to say, I trusted him. So I exchange a few texts with this guy. All seems normal. He asks if we can meet up, we agree on a time and place, and I head out. I get to the spot first and wait a couple of minutes, but Buddy's taking forever. I call him up and I tell him that I'll meet him further north, closer to his place because he's taking so damn long. And I had a couple orders that are piled up in his area now. He eventually gets to the new spot. I parked around the corner and walked over with his order, hop in the back seat of the truck, and then proceed to begin with the exchange. A couple minutes in, things start to seem off. Out of nowhere, Buddy next to me and the guy in the front seat pull out guns and tell me to hand over my keys. One of them hops out and gets into my car. We follow in the truck. Eventually, they pull over, tape my eyes shut, and take me to a house on the north end of the city. I tried to remember the turns, but they were obviously trying to keep me from remembering. Eventually, they get to the house. They bring me inside, down the stairs into the basement. At this time, they made me call my girlfriend and instruct her to empty the safe into a box and walk it down to the front gate of the apartment where they had someone waiting. She did exactly as I told her, thankfully. After the guy got back to the house with everything I had, they brought me back to my car and just let me go. And to answer the question, how did I survive? I did exactly as I was told. I revealed enough information to get myself out. They wanted the address of those that I worked for, and I just kept repeating the same story, which was I didn't know their addresses. I behaved, I did what they asked, and I was happy to walk away with no new holes and only a couple facial bruises. I'm not sure what the book on being kidnapped says, but I complied. I didn't know if the guns were loaded, and I didn't feel like finding out. I was outnumbered and scared for my girlfriend who was home alone. Overall, 3 out of 10. Would not recommend and would not want to get kidnapped again.